Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I want to talk about Samira and finally give my review on this character now that she's been out for a full week and kind of talk about where I think she's at, how I think she's doing, and what she will look like ideally a couple months down the line, and kind of where her balancing is going to go. Now, first and foremost, I do want to say Samira is incredibly fun to play, but I expected that from the very start. She's a champion with huge pop-off potential. She really lets you want to go for the outplay, and she's the kind of champion where you just want to push your limits on constantly. You just kind of want to say, let's go in, let's press buttons, give me a chance to go for this because all I want to do is fight with this character. She feels very fluid, she feels very fun, and even the melee bits of her kit feel really interesting and exciting to use. I feel like there are never any opportunities where you feel like, yeah, I should have stepped back and, just auto-attacked or just used the distance Q. You almost always are like, get me in there, let me use the big melee Q, let me use those big melee auto-attacks. That feels really, really satisfying. And that's part of, I think, the advantage of Samira is all of her sound effects are incredibly satisfying, especially on her release skin, which is not always the case, but either way, she's a very, very satisfying champion to play in terms of her sound design. I really love how she sounds, even when she's building up her stacks, the constant progression of notes until you eventually hit that S, you get the guitar riff, and you immediately go for that Inferno trigger to get the big damage down. It's all a lot of fun. Now, Samira also seems like she has really, really high base attack speed. I feel like not very many other characters in the game have the level of attack speed that Samira does by default, which is really good. I feel like it means that she doesn't actually need attack speed as much as other carries do. She can kind of afford to go for a more attack damage heavy build with something like Essence Reaver into Infinity Edge into Death's Dance. Could be a very viable build on Samira because her auto attack speed is pretty decent on its own, and because she kind of weaves auto attacks in and out, it feels like she doesn't necessarily need to go for anything particularly high attack speed builds because she just kind of uses a spell, then auto attacks, uses a spell, then auto attacks. And honestly, that's part of what I thought was really nice about Samira as well, is obviously you can get to the S rank by all-inning and basically threading auto attacks between each ability cast, but you can also do it in fights where you can't really afford to go all the way in with Samira because her base auto attack is so fast and because her Q comes up so quickly. You're kind of able to auto attack Q, auto attack Q, auto attack Q from a distance while staying safe in a team fight, stack up to the S, and then look for your outplay moment to go in and use Inferno Trigger. So I thought that was a really interesting play pattern, and I'm glad that she has the ability to make those kind of plays instead of being forced to go all in and try for something. So I quite like how that is designed. Obviously, she's better if she's able to go all the way in and get the damage off from her abilities and be in the middle of the enemy team when she Inferno triggers. But either way, it's a very interesting design, and I really like how it works with Samira. Now, obviously, there's a big question for me to answer here, and I know a lot of you guys are going to be curious, and a lot of you guys have actually already been asking, what is Samira like balance-wise? Is she broken? And honestly, my opinion after a week has not changed. Yes, she did receive a hotfix nerf, and I felt like it was very justified. The areas they nerfed her base health to make her more risky in lane, I thought that was a fine nerf, and then removing some of the base damage on her ultimate I also felt was totally justified given the AD scaling on it. That ultimate will annihilate you based on the AD scaling, so you definitely didn't need all of that damage. So those are both very justified nerfs in my opinion. And obviously Riot are really trying to make sure the champion releases balance, so the fact that they had to hotfix Samira is not a good sign for her. But generally speaking, looking at what this character does and kind of how she plays, I feel like she's really not that big of a deal. I feel like she's really not in that broken of a state. And essentially, here's why. Samira is a champion that absolutely has to get ahead. This is not a character that you can be behind on and still feel like you're doing something, because her utility is very, very limited. Blade Whirl is essentially the only move she has that has any degree of utility to it, and it's on a very long cooldown. Even with a bunch of CDR built up, it's still like a 20+ second cooldown. So you're only getting it once a fight at most, and once about every wave and a half or so. So in that regard, Samira does not contribute that much to the team when she's behind. She does have the auto attack juggle, which does give her a limited amount of extra utility, but that does require a certain amount of playstyle, and it requires her to be in range to proc it, so there's a little bit less that can really work with. And she's very squishy and needs to be in the center of the action to succeed. In order to get maximum value out of Inferno Trigger, or maximum value out of Blade Whirl by dashing into the middle of the enemy team, destroying all their projectiles, you basically have to be in the middle of the whole team, which is not always an option for Samira. If she's behind, even if you get to Inferno Trigger and start ulting, you might just die immediately before you do enough damage for it to matter. So that is a big limiting factor in Samira. Yes, if you're ahead, you will probably kill everyone and everything and make it look easy while you do so, but that's how the character kind of works. If you're behind, this character is going to be absolutely worthless. In a similar fashion to Draven, I would say, how if Draven gets ahead, he just kind of runs away with the game due to the bonus gold he gets, the high amount of damage he can deal on his Q powered auto attacks, but if he's behind, it's sort of like, what else does Draven do? He has one knockback / slow, and that's about it. Besides that, he's going to throw largely ineffectual axes. And Samira is very similar to that, except Samira is also 500 auto attack range, unlike Draven. So Samira really has to be safe in order to get any value out of herself, because if she doesn't get ahead, she has to get so close to the enemy team and is not rewarded that much because she also wants to be in melee range to make these plays happen, that it just ends up being not very good for her in general. So she's not in a spot where I feel like this character is totally broken, because if she's popping off, she kind of deserves it. That's the kind of character she is. Samira is like Renekton, where you know she's going to be strong in lane, you know they're going to be looking for fights, but if they can't find the fights, if they get outscaled, that they're not going to do very much. And that's kind of where I'm at with Samira. It feels like it's really easy to just kind of equalize lane and ignore her, and then you're going to be more of a relevant carry than Samira at the end of the day. She also absolutely has to be paired with an aggressive support. I feel like Samira paired with an enchanter or anyone else just does not really do that much for me. Now, obviously, you could pick a slightly more defensive support, someone like Morgana, and still have the option of playing around Samira, because if Morgana lands a binding, Samira can dash into range for the auto attack knockup and then do the rest of her combo from there, has Black Shield to keep her from getting interrupted. But at the end of the day, though, you still want someone who can look for an aggressive play. Samira is not going to work well at all with a champion like Soraka, for example, or a champion like Janna. I just don't think that's where she's going to find her maximum value, because she needs someone who can let her proc her follow-up passive, and she needs someone who can set her up for a fight. Soraka and Janna don't really do that. They say, we'll protect you, but also you're kind of on your own when it comes to a fight. So, and because of all of this, I don't feel like Samira will make waves in pro play unless all-ins and bot lane camping strategies become super dominant, because, again, her ability to play from behind is very low. Samira is a champion very akin to Vayne, I would say, in that, yeah, this champion has big pop-up potential, they have big carry potential, but also they're going to be a champion that you have to sink resources into. You have to enable them to do things in fights, or they're just not going to do that much. So, in general, I don't feel like she's going to be that broken. I really don't feel like she's that bad at all. In fact, most of the games I played, Samira was really a non-factor. She was there, she did damage, and even relevant amounts of damage, but she was never like, oh my god, the Samira's coming, we have to be totally worried about it. Usually it was the other members of the enemy team. So again, I just don't think that she's that good, guys. But let me know if you guys are still thinking she's completely broken down in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on why you think she's still super good. Talking about that a little bit more, I also don't feel like we'll see Samira very much in solo lanes. Her wave clear is okay, but it's a little gimped because she has to be in melee range for it, which puts her at a disadvantage, especially mid lane, into either assassins that want to dash on top of her or mages, which outrange her. A mage like Syndra, for example, will just kind of be able to push Samira in all day, and unless she's dashing into the wave or getting close enough to it that she can use a melee form Q, she's just not going to be able to wave clear and ever match that, which means that the enemy mid laner just gets to kind of roam however they want to do. And her all-in can get stuff pretty easily due to how long it takes her passive to stack up. It feels like when Samira goes in, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I just have to kill you or run away before you get to S rank, which is not that hard to do, guys. It really isn't, because you have to make sure you're weaving those auto attacks in, which is not always what happens. So it just doesn't feel like it's that great, and especially because she can't proc her passive juggle on her own. It really does limit her ability to do anything. So, like, for example, consider Yasuo. If he didn't have the tornado on his Q, if he could not proc his ultimate on his own, you would never see that champion in solo lane, because essentially he could not use a very integral part of his kit. Now, it's not quite an equivalent comparison, because Yasuo's ability is his ultimate, so he has to be able to use that at some point in his kit. But you kind of get what I'm saying, in that Samira can't proc a very integral part of her kit on her own. She has to have someone else there to enable her. So either Samira in a solo lane basically says, my jungler's going to camp me, at which point you know, and you can kind of ward up and play safe, or she says, I'm foregoing this very important part of my passive, at which point you say, okay, cool, you're playing a champion with 4.5 abilities, I'm playing a champion with 5 abilities. So solo lane Samira, I don't feel like is going to be good for that reason. Again, though, all that being said, I know I've been negative a lot for a lot of this video, but she is a super fun champion to play. This champion, when you get ahead, just makes you want to press all of your buttons, go for the big plays, go for the 1v3s. Who cares? You're Samira. You'll find a way to make it happen, which is super fun. I do really like that kind of playstyle, and I do really like where Samira sits in the game. She feels very unique. She feels like a very interesting character, and I am certainly going to be playing more of her over the next couple of weeks, assuming I can get her, as her popularity has ensured that it's been, she's been a contested pick this whole week, shall we say. But let me know what you guys think of Samira down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts, especially how you've been playing her, what you've been building on her, what you think of her balance state. Let me know all that down in the comments. Would love to hear it. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.